2017 is over. So, what did I gotta look forward to this past weekend? No. No, this is not right. This is not supposed to be the week that I review a horror movie. Horror movies are terrible this time of year. Really? I have to review this movie? God. Alright. Well, it certainly was a bore. Winchester is a story that is pretty much ingrained into the American conscience, whether it is the Amityville horror or pretty much when it comes to the story of haunted houses. Pretty much we gravitate towards those stories because they're just ingrained into our American psychosis. And Winchester is telling the story of Sarah Winchester, played by Helen Mirren, as she is being examined by Jason Clarke, a psychologist who has had some run-ins with the Winchester rifle before, but, has his own demons from his past. And what follows is a movie that really doesn't know what it wants to do, and it just ends up being boring. The one thing I could say about this movie that is the purest cardinal sin in any horror film is that if the horror film is boring, then it's boring. There's no going about it. Horror movies have had a terrible reputation when they're released in January and February, and sometimes you can get some pleasant surprises. But January and February are terrible months for these movies, mostly because people know by now is that a lot of the studio's sort of dumpings usually come in the form of January and February films. And sometimes you can get some bigger exceptions, like Paddington 2, which happened to be a really good movie. But Winchester is not. The pace of the movie is very, 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 very slow in the first act. And for a movie that is only an hour and a half long, it felt like 2.5 hours, which is just kind of sad. There's also a lot of retreading throughout the story where they keep repeating certain things and okay, they just do it. Probably the most upsetting part about all this is that this is done by the Spirig brothers, who did Daybreakers and Predestination, two certain films that I happen to enjoy. And this film is pretty much one of their lowest standards of filmmaking. The film feels cheap with its production design, and you can noticeably tell. The cinematography doesn't help anything, and let's not forget, the jump scares are way too predictable in this film, and it even tries to double tap its own scares. I specifically remember one sequence where there's the guy Jason Clarke is looking in the mirror, and they keep expecting some character to be sitting in a chair when the mirror moves, but no, nothing happens, so the mirror just switches to this, and you see a face, and then it disappears. And then right afterwards, Jason Clarke moves the mirror again to the chair, and there's someone in the chair. So it double taps on these scares, and it reuses scares in this movie too. There's one scare in particular, which happens to involve a roller skate that happens in one scene and then is brought back again in another scene in almost the exact same format, in the exact same angle too, of the direction of the roller skate. It's kind of odd to me that they would keep reusing certain scares. But I think the most annoying aspect about this film is how political this film really is. Because granted, everyone knows that the Winchester is known to be a repeating rifle, right? It's a gun manufacturing company. And so it makes no sense to me, really, What happens in this movie, I'm getting into spoiler territory because this is not really a good film. The character of Sarah Winchester in this film is a bit of a hypocrite. Like, she keeps the records of all these people who've been killed by the Winchester rifle, and she doesn't want the rifle in her house, she doesn't want weapons in her house. But one day, a ghost is like, hey, build this room that has a bunch of Winchester rifles in it, and she immediately believes it. Okay, but didn't you just say, and didn't, other servants say, hey, no weapons in the house, no guns, nothing. No weapons in the house. And she brings in weapons in the house. And what's also hilarious in this movie is that she wants to protect her family so much from these evil demons that she goes out of her way to endanger her own family just so that she can appease a fucking ghost that died. It's honestly unbelievable. And for a person who runs a company that should know better about gun safety, she not only puts the guns in cabinets that are easily accessible to children, because there is a character in this movie that is a child that keeps getting possessed in the film, and it's also hilarious that it's also a ginger, but none of that. But also, in that same place, they put the ammunition. Any sane gun owner or people who manufacture guns would tell you that putting ammo near your guns is pretty much a recipe for disaster. Because if people can automatically get a gun and ammo out of your own safes, it's not good. It's standard regulation for gun ownership that you have to keep those separate. And the fact that Sarah Winchester, a person who runs the company, would do that, would not take the precautions necessary to keep her family safe, even though she said that she'll keep her family safe, is very hypocritical. And the characters in this movie are very inconsistent, and as I just displayed before, with Sarah Winchester and the gun safe thing, it's very inconsistent. The story is very inconsistent. And this movie, I feel, tries to be a movie that's kind of like The Christmas Carol. You know how in The Christmas Carol, like, the focus is on a billionaire who's very stingy about money, but over the course of a night or so, they get told, hey, maybe being greedy isn't such a good thing. Maybe you should, be happy and try not to stinge around with your money. And that's what Winchester feels like to me. It's supposed to be a Christmas Carol to the NRA, it feels. And again, it's literally what the film felt like. It really is. And that's not to say that, people shouldn't get pissed off that, there's gun violence. And yeah, we should strive to not be so gun violent. But the film ham-fists this message in there that it almost feels like, it's trying to be a social commentary horror film, but without even trying to be a horror film in the first place. The reason why Invasion of Body Snatchers works as a political commentary is more to do with the fact that, most of it is subtext, and the creatures embody certain things. Here, it's more literal and in your face, and none of it ever feeds into anyone's minds. And it's just kind of sad because there is some genuine talent on display. I mean, Helen Mirren gives it her all despite a really shitty script. And, well, pretty much everything else just kind of sucks. It's a horror film that you should probably not see. Actually, maybe you should see it drunk, but pretty much throughout the entire movie, me and my friend who were watching it last night, we couldn't take it seriously. So we started making fun of the film, like Mystery Science Theater. So, I don't know. Again, this movie's a very big misfire, if that has anything to do with it. I'm going to give Winchester a D-. Thank you guys so much for watching this review of Winchester. Hopefully next week I'll be able to see something nice. Shit.